See that greenhouse over my shoulder? I built that a few years ago. That was the first thing that was built on this farm in the last 25 years. Since then, everything else has fallen down. That was the only thing that was built. Let's rewind a bit and give you a bit of history.
During the 1970s, my parents, along with a group of friends, moved out of the city and bought a farm on the outskirts of Montreal. Having little other option, both families piled into the old farmhouse until my parents were finally able to build a house of their own. And well, that's where I came in. Growing up on a farm made for one of the greatest childhoods I could imagine. With 300 acres at my disposal, there was always something to do. I even had a cow. While I was off having the time of my life, my parents were busy transforming the swamp and empty pasture into something more. The farm thus began to change, to mature. And it wasn't long after that I too began to change. I went to university, I bought a guitar, and then I bought a van. And over the next 5 years and hundreds of thousands of kilometers, I let that guitar and that van take me around the world. But a funny thing happened. Every time I'd come home from tour, things that I once took for granted began to change. The old farmhouse, now abandoned, was destroyed and hauled away. The trees of my youth began to fall to the ground. One by one. And just as the trees had done, the old buildings that greeted my parents when they took their first steps on the farm so long ago began to surrender to the elements. Giants fell. And finally, just as we were celebrating the 40th anniversary of the farm, our two greenhouses collapsed under the accumulated weight of snow and ice, crushing the grapes that lived within.
Which brings us to today. Today, I am going to set the foundation for these two greenhouses that I have been trying to get built for a while. And right now it looks like I beat the frost. I beat the ground from being frozen, because in a few minutes I'm going to begin banging in the foundation poles with this here hammer. And once those are in, it's only a matter of time before this thing gets built. It can freeze, it can rain, it can snow. That will not stop it. So I kind of think back, once I do this, I've technically accomplished everything that I wanted to do this year. If we look way back to that first episode or to the trailer for season 2, well, so this fall, when I look back on my year, here's what I'm gonna say. I'm gonna say that this was the year that we doubled production on key crops. I'm gonna say that after 4 years of backbreaking work, we finally finished pruning the blueberries. And even if my back gives out or my bones break, I'm gonna say that this year, this was the year that I put greenhouses back up over these grapes. I would have accomplished all of those things. But it makes me wonder,
was I successful? It shouldn't be a difficult task to quantify success, should it? We look back on the year and line up the accomplishments with the goals we set out for ourselves in the spring. But is that truly an honest representation of success? What about the non-tangibles, the emotions, stress, and sacrifice? What about the things you didn't see? Like the jobs I didn't show you. the broken gear. The struggles, both off and on the field. The injuries. The following series of events was measured in days, not weeks. A list of tasks followed by a list of problems, each with their own workaround. I never considered myself to be a true farmer. Growing up in a farming community, most of my friends were running heavy machinery before they were old enough to even drive a car. I, however, was given the opportunity to pursue my own future, and while working on the farm was always present, it was not expected of me. And so a lot of the high-level tasks were left to be handled by others, creating a knowledge gap, something which still to this day makes me feel insecure, inadequate. Perhaps it was due to that insecurity, or the fact that I'm at the point in my life where I realize that for certain things, I am on my own. But nothing could seem to stop me from seeing this project through to the end. I've always found it amazing just how far we are able to push ourselves. How far we can go beyond what we thought possible if we were all to clear our minds and just try a little harder. And when you get there, past the point of exhaustion, when your eyes can no longer stay open and everything goes dark, where then does the mind go? Do you think I'm gonna need more self-tapping? How am I gonna get the ridge? Is the weather gonna cooperate? No. Instead, you find yourself thinking what an odd sensation it is to feel the ground freeze beneath your feet. Toward the end, the shortness of the days just became another problem to be solved. Another problem that was addressed as quickly as it manifested, in a project where the only constant, the only thing that was certain at the start of every single day, was the cold. In the end, I was successful. I was successful in restoring a small part of the past and altering the landscape, this time in the name of progress, not destruction. Because come spring, these greenhouses will receive their plastic, creating an additional revenue stream and securing the future of the grapes that live below. And as for my future, well, it's a little more complicated than that.